SIL, Syncona Indonesia Lestari, who are also a subsidiary of Kimia Pharma, and who are in the agriculture and pharmaceutical business. And beside that, I work with other companies, consulted with, managed, such as IBM, Oracle, and Apple and AXA Financial. Okay, so why are we here today? I want to introduce some project management concepts. You probably know about project management, but it doesn't hurt to repeat. And for those who don't know, you can get to learn a little bit about project management. I also want to introduce a fictitious project. So basically, this is a case study. Everything in that project did not happen, meaning I made it up, right? Because I was not in charge of the COVID project handling. I wish I was, but I wasn't. But if I was, I would have, this is how I would have handled it. And this is the beauty of project management. And you'll see that you don't need to be a pharmacist or a chemist or even a doctor to manage a project. In my life, I have managed financial projects, government projects, education projects, engineering, construction, actuarial, and few other things, even medical, right? And my background is engineering. Okay. Also, I want to explain what works, what makes project management work, and what makes it not work. Okay, and finally, very briefly talk about project management in Indonesia according to my observation for the past 3 years or so. Okay, so let's just get with some introductory concepts first, so everybody's on the same page. We all do projects, believe it or not, we all do projects. Each one of us does a project almost every day. Whether or not you're a project manager or not is irrelevant, because we all do projects. How is that possible? Because because on our daily project, right, those of you who had baby, married and had baby, that's a project, right? From the time you get to know that the mom is pregnant, and then you want to choose the name and the clothes and the hospital and all the way until the baby is delivered. That's a project, right? It has a beginning, it has an end, and in the middle there are stuff that happens towards achieving the project. If you have ever married or planning to marry, you know that to plan a wedding is a project, and could be a very tough one too. Right? So planning the wedding, planning the place, planning the people, the food, the venue, all kind of stuff, right? It's a project. If you have done renovation, excuse me, if you have done renovation for your house, or you hire someone to do renovation for your house, you know that that's a project, right? Because you want to decide what needs to be renovated, what needs to be changed. You need to hire somebody. You need to supervise them. They will come back to you and say, well, we have this problem, or we run out of money, all kind of stuff during the project. If you have planned a vacation somewhere, right, then that's a project. You have to choose the destination, how much does it cost, what are you going to do there, all the, visas, all that stuff, right? So let me tell you quickly about my moving project, just to show you how project management can apply to almost anything that we do. 2017, I'm married to my wife. We live in New York City, and I love it and everything. But we decided to move to Indonesia from New York City. Prior to that, I was here 2013 temporarily. I was managing a project for 1 year for Telkom Indonesia. Through a small management consulting company. I really loved it. I loved Indonesia. I loved the food. I loved the people. I loved the weather, all kind of stuff. So 2017, we decided, you know what, we need to move, right? We need to move. And I also think that Indonesia is a very open land for business opportunities. So we made the decision, right? So once we made that decision, we decided we have to decide something called the scope, right? And the scope is what does your project include, right? What does it include and what does not include, right? So our project included flying. You had to have, tickets and reservations. Moving the cats, we had 3 cats, right? Which are like our babies. They live in the house, so we had to move them. Moving some of the light items, some of the books, some of the kitchen stuff, selling our furniture, right? Because it's too big to move, selling the car. I had a car, renovating, and also we including renovating the Indonesian house, right? We bought a house. My wife here came earlier, I think 2015 or so, and we bought a house in BSD. We have to also define what's not included in the project. If you don't define what's not included in the project, you might go there and blow up your project, meaning your timeline might be messed up, your budget might be messed up, you'll be all over the place. So you also have to define what's not included, right? What's not in the scope. So we decided that not in the scope is me looking for a job or starting a business. We have to move first, and then we will do that in a later stage. But for this project, it includes the moving and everything connected to it. And then you had to define a timeline, right? So the start was, January 2017. By April 2017, we said we wanted to be done, moved already and settled in Indonesia. And every project, you must have a beginning and you must have an end. Anything that runs forever, it's a problem, or maybe it's not or maybe it's not a project, right? Maybe it's more of an operation. And then you had to define all the things that are happening within this project. For example, selling our stuff, the car, the furniture, the books, shipping other stuff. We decided to ship some stuff we're not gonna carry with us. Cats, like we said, we had 3 cats, so a cat moving procedure turned out to be very complicated, right? All the quarantine, all the vaccinations, all kind of stuff. And then medical preparation for us, me and my wife. And then, of course, visa for me, and then, farewell party with our friends. Every project must have a budget. Every project must have a budget because you spend time, and time usually equals money, or you hire people such as shipping company, right? Or you're buying tickets or house renovation, all stuff that costs money. So we had to put a budget for all that stuff. And then every project must have resources. The resources is the things that you use. It could be people, it could be equipment, it could be material, anything, right? So for example, shipping material, because we want to ship, so we had to put things in boxes and wrap it up and stuff like that. Shipping companies become a resource because they're the one that picked up our stuff and shipped it. Our friends coming to help us pack and package and stuff become resources, right? Tickets, because you need tickets to travel. Contractor, because we were renovating the house in Indonesia. Vet doctor for the to all the procedures for the cats. And we even hired a cat moving agent, because it was more, it's easier to do so. And of course, bags. So these are some of the resources we used. And then every project, as you run a project, you will have problems. And the problem is called issue. Issue is something that you must fix, because if you don't fix, it will, it might, delay your project, postpone your project, or ruin it completely. So for example, one of the issues we had was that originally we wanted to ship everything, right? The furniture and the clothes and the books, everything, right? And the equipment and the appliances and stuff like that. But that turned out to be very, very expensive, right? So we said no. So the solution or the resolution for that issue was, okay, we're going to ship only the small items, and anything else we are going to either sell or get rid of. Okay. And then we have to make decisions. Every project includes sometimes a point in time where you have to make decisions. So for example, the car. I had a car, it was really good and it's nice and everything, and it was running great. But the decision was, are we gonna move it? Are we gonna keep it? Are we gonna move it? Are we gonna sell it, right? So we had to consider facts. So facts were, first of all, it's very high taxes and dues, customs, right? in Indonesia. And then the car was 13 years old, even though it was in good condition, but it's 13 years old, so it was starting to make trouble. And fact number 3 is that, you know what, we can probably afford to buy a small car once we are in Indonesia. So the decision based on all these facts, 1, 2, 3, was sell the car, buy a new one in Indonesia. And then we face risks, and risks is something I'm going to talk to you about more later. And the risk is a possibility. It might happen, and it might never happen, right? Why do you consider something that might or might not happen? Because like in America, we say, if there's a chance it goes wrong, it will go wrong, right? So for risks, you need to think about something that might go wrong, so you have a plan for it. So if it actually goes wrong, if it actually materialize and become an actual issue, right, then you have a plan for it, right? So the risk was, for example, what if we cannot sell our items because we had a very small window to move, 3 months, right? What if we cannot sell all the items? What to do? And that can happen. So the solution would be give away some of them, leave some of them with a friend and ask them for help to sell it. And give them commission if they want to, or whatever we cannot sell, we're just gonna throw them away, in the curb, right? Okay, so the results of all this preparation, alhamdulillah, was we executed the project smoothly. We moved. The cats were reunited with us because they were quarantined, and then it was party time, right? So that was our small project, just to give you an idea. So let's talk about some few basics. A project basically is a temporary effort that you take to create a unique product, service, or result, right? It's a temporary effort or endeavor, temporary because it has to have a beginning, start, it has to have an end, right? And it usually create a new product, or unique product or service or result. So for example, if you software development projects, right? You're developing a project, people who are programmers and developers, that's a project. It has a beginning, it has an end, it has requirements, it has an idea, and then people do the coding and the testing, and then and then they roll it out, they implement it, the users start using it, right? If you've seen drug manufacturing, medicine and stuff like that, it's a project. Event management or training could be a project. If you build a subway or MRT or LRT, that's an example of a project. If you have a conference, that's a project. If you have a marketing campaign, that is also a project. Because you have a beginning to this campaign, you have a goal for this campaign, you have an end to this campaign, so that is a project. Usually companies take projects to move their state from certain state better, right, to a better future state, right? Otherwise, why are you doing projects, right? So why do we need to do projects? You could be launching a new product, right? You have a new product. You manufacture bags, and maybe you want to manufacture a new bag or a new water-resistant bag, or even a new shoes, not even bags. Fix existing product or service. You are in the bag manufacturing business, but your last product or your last bag is not great, so you want to fix what's going on. Execute a strategy. Maybe you have a strategy to enter a new market, or maybe you have a strategy to acquire new customers, and so on. Or maybe you have a strategy to export. That becomes a project. Regulations, right? If you are in the pharmaceutical business, if you are in the financial banking business, and maybe others, sometimes you have regulations done by the government or by the regulation authority, and you need to comply with that. So that becomes a project. And of course, to satisfy stakeholders' needs or stakeholders' need or request, because sometimes somebody in the company, some big manager, some big executives say, hey, what about we do this? What about we do that? So you need to launch a project to explore that idea by the executive. And you guys, if you have any questions, please write it down on the side, or feel free to type it in the chat. Is that okay, right, Geeta? They can type it in the chat?
Is that okay?
It's okay. Okay. So type it or write it on the side. So when we finish, inshallah, you can ask. So so that's a project, right? Beginning and end. And then in the middle, there's activities and tasks and people and budget and stuff like that. So what's not a project is considered operations. Operations are something that's happening all the time, right? And that's something that you need to have to keep the lights on for the business, meaning to run the business. So for example, if you are constructing a new restaurant, right? That's a project. But once the restaurant is done and its operation, running the daily activity of the restaurant becomes operation, not project anymore. Let's say if you are launching a new software, right? Or new program for your company or a new software, that becomes a project. Once people have the software and now people daily usage and then maintenance of the software, maybe bugs, maybe help desk, that becomes what? Becomes operation, right? If you're constructing the subway, such as MRT or LRT, right? That is a project. But then once the MRT is operational, the daily maintenance, people who come and fix the track and and clean and check the lights and everything and police and all these activities become operation for the project, right? Can anybody give me examples of a project? Just if anybody has an idea, you can just write it in the chat. Just let me see if anybody has idea about project. If you don't, that's okay. We can go on. Or if any of you right now involved in a project, just tell me I am managing this or I know about this kind of project. Okay, people are shy here. That's okay. So we covered quite a bit. So let's keep going. Beside a project, there's something called also a program. A program is usually a much bigger project, right? A much bigger project that maybe require a lot more effort, bigger effort, a lot more people, right? For example, if you are upgrading a call center, you know, the call center that companies have, that could be a program because it includes a lot of things. Maybe a national marketing campaign that span over the whole country or many countries, that could be a program. So it's a much bigger project with many, many, many different components. Maybe creating a new medicine or drug such as COVID vaccination, that could be easily considered a program because it includes a lot of pieces, right? Opening a chain restaurant, not only one restaurant, you know, whole bunch of restaurants all over the country, that could be also a program. Then we have quickly, so you know, something called portfolio. Portfolio is from a company perspective, right? Let's say you are in a marketing company and you know, you have many different projects that's happening, something IT related, something new market related, something new HR or HR related. The collection of all these projects is called portfolio, and companies are interested to see, you know, from a portfolio perspective, how is every project is doing, right? This is project 1, project 2, project 3. Are we doing good? Are we red? Are we green? And so on. And usually companies look at a portfolio level because they want to look at the resources in general that are involved in the project, as well as the strategy, right? Are we establishing and achieving strategy from running all these projects or not? Right. Okay, project management. What is project management? Project management is a disciplined approach to initiate a project, plan it, execute it, control it, and then close it. Why you want to do all that stuff? So you can achieve specific goals for the project, as well as meet a success criteria for the project, right? So a project includes, you know, a whole bunch of, you know, starting and planning and executing the project to achieve certain goals, basically, right? Every project has constraints, and some of the constraints include the time. Why time? Because you don't have all the time in the world to develop whatever you want to develop, right? So time becomes a factor, right? And then costs, right? Cost is very important because time equals money, right? You're paying people, you're paying contractors or vendors, you're paying for licenses and so on. So costs become a factor. And then scope, if you remember, we talked about scope. Scope is what are you building, right? What is included within your project? And these three is called the triple constraint. Triple constraint because usually if you increase one of them, it can affect the other. So for example, if you're building a project and you're saying in the scope, it includes 1, 2, 3 items to do, right? We are doing 1, 2, 3 things in this project. Based on that, you said, okay, this is gonna take 6 months to develop and it's gonna cost this much. Now, if you come halfway in the project and you start adding more stuff to the scope, oh, I'm gonna also add more stuff, then most likely the time might be increased, right? Or the cost might be increased. For example, let's say you're renovating the house, right? You're renovating the house, and you hire somebody. The contractor will ask you, okay, what do you want to be renovated? You can say, well, I want the walls to be fixed. I want the painting like this. I want windows like this, and so on, right? So based on that, the contractor will go and say, okay, this is going to take 3 months. It's going to cost you $1,000 or $5,000, for example, right? Now, halfway in the project, you come and say, can we also change the windows to this more fancy windows, right? And what's going to happen is the contractor going to say, wait, we did not agree to that. But let's say you accept that, and he will say, well, this is an additional cost, and maybe it will take you more money, right? So as you can see, projects are usually have constraint of time, cost, and scope, right? And other factors such as quality and so on, right? The history of project management, briefly, we believe that early projects such as the Egyptian pyramids, right? Or such as the Wall of China, right? Thousands of years ago, were probably based on some sort of elementary project management. They had to have some organization to get these kind of projects going on. In the 19th century, in the US, right, commerce grew, and then project management started to become more of a science. For example, in the 1862 in the US, we started building a very intricate a very intricate map of roads and trains and stuff like that. And that cost a lot of money, but because of that, US started using some sort of a little bit of structured approach to project management. However, it wasn't until the early 1900s that what we call modern project management came, such as what we call Gantt chart, or such as the bar chart, BERT analysis, and so on. You don't have to worry about all that stuff. It's just an idea. And you can see that in the early, in the 50s, the US Navy, Booz Allen, who is a defense manufacturer, right, start developing more methods for scheduling and timelines, such as critical path method and so on, right? And then in the 60s, something called PMI, Project Management Institute, was formed, and they started standardizing the knowledge about project management. Other organizations such as Association of Project Management, or the International Project Management Association in Europe and the UK started also being developed. And of course, some standards were developed, such as the PMBOK and Prince2 and so on. And the Olympics of London in 2012 was completely managed by project management. So people started paying attention to realizing that project management is very, very powerful way of managing big projects. Okay. So this was our basics to project management. Forgive me because I'm trying to give you so much information in short period of time. Let's talk about our project, right? So this is, again, this is a fictitious project. So we all know what happened, right? COVID and the virus, and this is a very latest unfortunate map where it shows about 91 million people have been infected and 1.9 people died. And this is from CNN Health. And these are the numbers, and you can go to that website if you're interested to see more numbers. So disclaimer, I'm not a pharmaceutical guy. I'm not a medical expert guy, right? I'm not a medicine guy. And this is entirely a fictitious project, meaning none of the events that I'm describing here actually happened with me, at least, right? It could have happened somewhere else. And this is not a political project, please. So this is not meant to say the government did this or the government did that. That's not the point of this project. So it's really this choice of mine. This choice of mine of this project, because of its importance, it's in everybody's mind. And I wanted to show you, if I managed this project, how would I have handled it, right? And that project management is a very powerful tool to manage such effort. So what likely happened is COVID was spreading. It started coming to Indonesia. The Indonesian president decided we need to take action. He called probably the Minister of Health and appointed him as the sponsor for this project, right? Sponsor is a highly, visible executive person who's going to be in charge of the project. The Minister of Health suggested to use project management as the way to handle this project. Amro gets a call, that's me. I get a call, right? I do not know the Minister of Health, but let's assume that I know him in this fictitious project. So he called me. I say, "Hey, Amro, what's up?" And I said, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And he says, "I need you to be involved in this project." And I says, "Okay, that sure." And so from now on, I'm managing the project. Okay. The very first thing, anybody has any? I know we can leave questions until the end, but anybody not clear what happened so far?
So far clear, Amro.
Okay, thank you, Ferris. Okay, okay, so let's continue. So the very first thing, right? And these are so you know, I teach these things and I train these things for companies. Besides, I help them implement and manage, right? So this is a very short course to what usually is 2-3 days of work. So, try to take notes and stuff like that. And this is my own way, right? This is my own way, which alhamdulillah for 30 years have worked. I've been managing projects for quite a bit. I've managed almost $7 billion worth of projects for Fortune 500 companies. So, and of course I failed. Everybody has to fail, right? Nobody's absolutely successful all the time, but until you fail, you learn from it. So this is my methodology. So the very first thing that the sponsor, who's to be now the Minister of Health, remember that MOH, Minister of Health, he's the sponsor, he has to write a charter. And the charter is nothing but a document or an email or an announcement to say, I authorize this person. I authorize the project manager to handle this project and everything that's related to this project. It could be something like, I, Mr. Minister of Health, I'm sorry, I don't know his name. I'm authorizing Mr. Amro, Elakkad, the guy from New York, as the project manager in charge of planning, executing, and delivering. And we called it Project COVID Recovery, and Hope, right? And so he could just do that. And he would send that, they call it the charter, that's a project charter. And he would send that email or announcement to all the ministries, everybody who is going to be touched by this project, so that when I contact the Minister of Hospitals or the Minister of, Immigration, right? And so on, they don't say, who the heck are you, right? They know that the Minister of Health appointed by the president has authorized the project manager to handle the project. Very, very important thing that so simple, but a lot of people don't do. A lot of sponsors don't do. A lot of organizations don't do. What they usually do is they call and say, hey, project manager, go ahead, get started. And the project manager starts contacting people and telling people, hey guys, we have a project. This is the scope. This is the challenge. Let's go. And they say, who are you? Go away. right? So you need that authorization from a top executive, right? And this is some sort of negotiation. Okay, a project charter can be also as detailed as this, right? It could be that one paragraph like this, and in an email or announcement or a letter. But it could also be more complicated, more detailed, such as this. You describe the problem, or the background. Why do we need a project? You describe the goals, right? All the goals that need to be achieved by the project. You describe the scope, and we're gonna get into this stuff later. So we describe the scope, which is what is this project handling exactly, and what is it not handling, right? In scope and out of scope. You describe the key stakeholders, and the key stakeholders are the people who are involved somehow. It could be a client, could be a sponsor, project manager, the team members, anybody that is affected, anybody that's touched by the project is considered a stakeholder. But you have key stakeholders. These are the people involved directly in managing the project. And then you have milestones. These are the timeline, on the schedule. By March, we should be done by this. By April, we should be done by this. By September, we should be done by this, as we will see later. And then budget. Sometimes you have an idea about the budget early on, and sometimes you don't, because it's too early, right? The project's just started, so he can. Sometimes the sponsor might indicate a bold figure, right? A bold figure. For example, this will cost $500 million or something like that. And forgive me because I'm using dollars, right? If I use rupiah, I know I'm going to use a lot more zeros, so it's easier to use dollars for now. And then you want to describe the constraints, anything that might hinder your impact your delivery of your project, any assumptions that you make, right? Any risks, and we're going to discuss that later. Any dependencies. If this project is dependent on something else that's happening, then it needs to be here. And then at the end of the charter, the guy will sign here, right? And the project manager will sign here, okay? And this is not my signature, so you cannot take it and go to the bank and get my money, right? Can't do that. Okay, so this is the detailed project charter. Some companies go through that, and some companies simply just use this simple paragraph or email or statement to say, I'm authorizing Mr. So-and-so to be in charge of this project, right? And then the project manager will take it from there. Okay. The next thing is for the project managers to identify all the stakeholders, right? Stakeholders are anybody affected by this project, either directly or indirectly, right? Anybody who can influence the progress in this project, anybody who can support, anybody who can resist, right? If you are building a train and this train goes through this village, right? The people of the village will be stakeholders, but they don't like it. They don't want this project. They don't want that train, right? But they are stakeholders. You need to deal with them. You need to have a solution how you're going to do like that with them, right? Anybody who has personal, financial, or professional interest in the outcome of the project. All these guys are what we call stakeholders, right? And if we don't identify all the stakeholders, and I repeat again, if we don't identify all the stakeholders, right, up front in the beginning, the project will fail, because you're gonna outlook somebody who's affected, who might have power, who might have political power, who might have financial power to stop your project or to change it. So you need to make sure you address or all the stakeholders up front. So okay, so I got the project. So I said, okay, here I am. This is me. Let me identify the stakeholders. Of course, the president is a stakeholder, right? He's very interested. He needs to know what's going on. The ministers, stakeholders. The mayors, the governors, I think Bupati, I think it's called, all these guys, stakeholder. Indonesian people in general, stakeholders, right? The vaccine vendor, if if we hire or if we buy from a vendor, then you know, like Sino, what do you call it, Sinovision or AstraZeneca's, all these companies, then they become also stakeholders. Community representatives, sometimes you have smaller community representatives, villages and the like. Hospitals and clinics, stakeholders. Police and army, because they need to keep the law and order, stakeholders. Maybe indirectly, statistics bureau. These are the company that keep information about people, right? About people in the country, because you need to know who they are, where they're located. So when you want to test, when you want to administer or, you know, vaccine everybody, you know who they are. Immigration, because sometimes you might need to close the border, open the border. Communities, representatives, we discussed that. Media, right? Because the media will be all over you, right? What's going on? What's going on? I need to know, right? Corruption agency could be also involved, and maybe others, right? These are some of the stakeholders I can think of. Again, it's very, very important when you start the project, when you start managing the project, you must list every single person or entity or organization that might be impacted by your project. Even, you know, if you have the slightest doubt, still list it, right? So you can see who's going to help me, who's not going to help me, who's going to be involved, who's not, and so on. The next thing, after I identified all the stakeholders, I want to have a team, right? I must have a team, so this team can help me manage. The team usually will, to make it simple, will consist of the project manager, will consist of the project sponsor. Remember the sponsor, that big guy who can make decisions. In this case, he's the Minister of Health, a core team, and an extended team. I'm going to explain that in a minute. Let's talk about the project manager first. Yes, the project manager can be like a Superman because he takes a lot of forms, he takes a lot of entities, and he put a lot of hats, right? Who's a project manager? Project manager is a person who must see the big picture, must see the business need. Why are we developing, you know, this water cooler? Because it's cool, or because there's a need for it, or because there's a market for it, you know, and so on, right? If you have a project without a business need, it's just wasting time, right? So the project manager need to understand first the big picture, right? Why are we doing this? What are we trying to achieve? But in the same time, the project manager should never ignore the details, right? Should never ignore the details. He must know all the details of the project as it's connected to the big picture. So he can be up there 20,000 feet or 20,000 meter vision, but he must also go down to the detail level to understand all the details of the project. A project manager, get this, project manager help people talk to each other. Help people talk to each other. Now you're thinking, what does that mean? I know how to talk to people. Put me in a room and I'll talk, right? You'll be surprised how many times people do not know how to talk to each other, and better yet, how to not listen to each other. It's easy to talk, right? But if you're not listening, active listening, you're really not communicating, right? So a lot of people think if I'm talking to Fabi and Fabi's talking back to me, but we're not both listening, so I don't know what he's saying. He doesn't know what I'm saying. Then we're not really communicating, right? We're just two people talking. So active listening, and this is something I handle in leadership and soft skills training, and when I mentor people, active listening is to listen, what is this person saying, make notes, and then repeating at the end to make sure you're in agreement. So Amro, what you said was A, B, C, D, E, F, G, agree? Yes, agree. Oh, maybe I heard you wrong, and so on. So you have to always summarize, and you have to always make sure that what you talked about at the end of the meeting, at the end of the, the getting together, we both agree on. Also, the project manager help make decisions. The project manager might not be the one making all the decisions. As a matter of fact, he does not make a lot of decisions, but he will help the team make decisions. He will help the sponsor, the big, executive guy, to make decisions by stating the facts, by summarizing the situation, and then giving them options. The project manager will want to always resolve issues. These are the problems that happen. must be resolved so the project keeps going. And he must plan for risks. These are the unforeseen negative possibility that might happen in the future that might impact the project in a negative way. So project manager handle decisions, issues, and risks. And then they deliver the project to the finish line, right? Because they constantly pushing people, they constantly on top of the project, they constantly getting people to sit down to talk about the issues and fixing things and stuff like that. The project will progress. In a study in 2009, Forrester Research, they did this study and found these are the top 10 qualities for managers in general and for project managers in specific. If you look at this list, what's striking here? Anybody can tell me what is interesting about this list? Anybody can notice anything? And feel free to chat. I don't know if you have a right. If you look at this list, you'll see that all these red checks are basically soft skills: emotional intelligence, adaptive communication, people skills, management skills, flexibility, business savvy, customer focus, results oriented, character. All this is soft skills, right? Which one is technical skills, hard skill, analytical skills, this green one? A lot of people think if you're a manager, you need to be very good in scheduling, budgeting, forecasting, things like that. Yes, you do. But more important, you need to be very good at managing people. You need to be very good at motivating people. You need to be very good at facilitating meetings and things like that, and making people agree on things, right? Soft skills is extremely important. And unfortunately, a lot of certificates and a lot of training ignore that. They focus on how to make a schedule, how to make a budget, which is important. But if you can, I can teach you how to make a schedule and budget in a day or two and become professional. But if you don't know how to deal with people, if you don't know how to talk to your sponsor, if you don't know how to talk to the stakeholders, your project is not going to go anywhere. As I define it, I have my own definition called world-class project management, as I written an article about it in 2010. A world-class project manager will have 3 types of skills. He will have technical knowledge. These are the technical ones, right? Scheduling, cost management, risk management, issues, communication management, resource, and so on. He will also have business and strategy skills, right? Such as strategic planning, finance, sales. And also he will have leadership and soft skills, right? Motivation, negotiation, communication, decision-making, right? So a person who have all 3 of these skills, in my view, is a world-class project manager. And it's okay if you don't have all that. Nobody's born world-class project manager, right? But you build it up, right? As you start and as you work your way into project management, you will get to know more and more about, you will acquire more knowledge. Someone asked the question, sorry, I just saw it. Let me answer it now, why not? Someone said, to whom the project charter should be informed. Right, so this is Gusty. Gusty, so basically the sponsor, the big executive guy, right? He will write the project charter and then he must send it to all the stakeholders, all the key stakeholders. So in this case, the Minister of Health, let's say, is the sponsor for the project, right? So he will write that charter and then he will send it to all the ministries. He will send it to the president. He will send it to all the head of the governors. He will send it to the head of immigration, the head of medical facilities, saying, hey guys, we have a project now. This project is called Project COVID Recovery and Hope. And this guy, Amro, is going to be the project manager. Now, like I said, he can include a little bit more detail. For example, in this project, what we're doing is we're gonna improve the medical facilities. We're gonna fix the immigration thing, situation. We are going to develop the vaccine. We are going to vaccine people. We are going to test people, right? So he can include the scope in points, right? So now when the project manager contact the ministers and form his team, nobody say, I don't know who you are, what do you want, right? So I hope I answer your question. Okay. And then you got the project sponsor, right? The project sponsor in a study it's called The Pulse of the Profession in 2016, it found out that the companies or organizations or projects that have project sponsor have a higher chance of success more than the projects that don't have any sponsor, right? And you'll be surprised. You can think, well, if a project is important, it needs to have some sort of sponsor. The answer is yes and no. No, because every project should have a sponsor, even if it's not that big, okay? But the involvement of the sponsor, that top executive, right, might be, it will differ from project to project. If the project is very important, very critical, very intense, then the sponsor should be involved a lot, committed, and give a lot of his or her time. If the project is simple and light and stuff, he could be involved, you know, from time to time. But you can see that, you know, projects with sponsors have scored a lot better than the ones without sponsors. A project sponsor usually is a senior manager or an executive or a minister, somebody high up there, right? He has interest in making the project successful, right? He's not complaining about the project from the beginning. He wants this project to be successful, right? He might be the one even started the project. It's his idea, or even wrote a business case. This is why we need this project to do this. Very important, he must be able to make decisions. If the sponsor cannot make decisions, then what's the point, right? You just come to meetings and that's it? No, he needs to be able to make decisions or bring or influence decision quickly, right? And he has influence from a company's perspective or from a government perspective. The sponsor should be able to set objectives, right? And goals, authorize the project manager, like we said, the project charter, and provide support in terms of resources. Excuse me. When you run a project, when you're the project manager, right? Usually you are managing people that don't report to you. Because on the project, now I was assigned this project, right? I'm gonna say on my team, I need someone from the Ministry of Health. I need someone from the Ministry of Immigration. Sorry if that's not the name, I'm just making up name. I need someone from the what do you call it? The immigration, right? I need a person from that can deal with procurement, because we're gonna deal with all these vendors who are developing the medicine and so on, right? The vaccine and so on. So these people will come and work on my project, but you know, we probably met the first time when the project started. So they don't know me necessarily. They don't report to me on a daily basis, but now on the project, they will be the one reporting to me. So the sponsor role is to make sure these resources come and work on the project and are committed. The sponsor also will serve as the connection with the higher executive. So the Minister of Health in this case will be connecting with the other ministers, with the president, right? He can participate in steering the project. The project manager will be the one, along with his team, running the project, but they, you know, he will have guidelines, he will have directions and stuff from the project sponsor. And if there are major issues, right, that the project manager and his team cannot resolve, the sponsor must be able to resolve it, right? And he can also make decisions like we said before. Next thing is, Next thing is, next thing is the core team, right? The core team is not everybody that will do, that everybody that from the stakeholders, no, it's a small group of people, not the entire team, not everybody senior management, no. But you want to include representatives from the different functional areas, somebody from the Ministry of Health, somebody from the police, somebody from the immigration, someone even from the funeral, because there's unfortunately people's going to die, right? So any area that you think will be touched upon in the project, you need representative from that area, and also those people need to be able to make decisions or at least facilitate a decision, right? So your core team will have somebody from the immigration, right? And then you discuss and you say, guys, we need to close the border from Thailand, from let's say from Cambodia, let's say, because they're testing positive, right? That immigration guy need to be able to make that decision and make that happen quickly. You go back to his ministry and it happens, right? So it's a key success factor that the people in your core team should be able to make decisions or make a decision happen, right? So in our case, the core team for the PCRH project could be representative from project management, from vaccination, hospitalization, immigration, communication, maybe social welfare. Why social welfare? Because the government maybe will design and distribute relief packages, right, from the economic impact. So you might need people from there. And then you have an extended team. So you had a core team, and then you have an extended team. An extended team is any other members from the organization or from the stakeholders, right, who's indirectly involved, have interest, but they're not going to be so involved, not as involved as the core team, right? So for example for extended team could be people from finance, could be people from police, could be people from economical forecasting, could be any of that, right? Could be IT, could be burial, legal, right? And it's debatable. Some people say, no, this will go to the core team. That's okay. But you don't want your core team to be 500, to be 50 people. You want your core team to be maybe 5 to 10 people max. That's the core team. That's the team who's going to work with you every day. The extended team, whenever you need something extra beyond the core team, you can call them and you can meet with them, right? And so it's good to do an org chart, a project org chart, to help everybody understand their role, to help management understand who's on the team from the core, from the extended, to understand the connection with the steering committee, and to explain who has approval authority and who is an SME. So for example, this is an org chart for a project, and this is no names. So for example, you're going to have, right? So for example, you're going to have a steering committee. Steering committee, definitely president, a bunch of ministers, high up there. And then you have the project sponsor. The project sponsor is the Minister of Health in our case. Then you have the project manager, that's me. And then you have a project coordinator or an admin, someone who can help you also collect data and follow up on people. Maybe I will hire Geeta or hire Fabi to do that. Then you have the core team. This is your core team, right? The core team will be select group of people, small group of people, 5 to 10 people. And then you have your extended team. And your extended team, as you can see, sometimes you will have a person from a certain entity or organization, and under him, he might even bring a few other people from his organization. It's very important to define the roles and responsibilities. A lot of time on projects, right, we fail because we don't define who's doing what. So everybody on the project come thinking, yeah, he's doing it, or I'm doing it, right? I'm taking care of this. No, you're taking care of this. It's extremely important. When you start project, you must define very clearly the roles and responsibilities for everybody who is on the team, who's on the core team and who's on the extended team, even the steering committee, even the project sponsor. You must define what do they do, what they don't do. And what this does, which is very important, right, is it helps hold people accountable. Sorry. It helps hold people accountable. And that's a key word, because if you don't hold people accountable, then nothing will happen, right? Nothing will happen. So for example, if you are designing a get together with your friends, right? And you're saying, okay, guys, we're gonna get together next Friday. We're gonna hang out. We go to the park, right? And then you're gonna say, if you say, someone bring the food, and someone bring the soccer ball and the volleyball and the badminton, and somebody will bring the the mat for the floor so we can put the food on, and so on, and someone will drive. And if you don't put a name, what's going to happen? Everybody think that, oh, he's taking care of the food, not me. Oh, he's taking care, right? So you need to say, redo this and say, okay, Amro, you bring the food. Geeta, you bring the drinks. Fabi, you bring the mats, right? The mats. Mario, you bring this. Ahmad, you bring this, right? So you must hold people accountable for their activities. Otherwise, nothing will happen, right? Okay, so let's continue. So you can use something like this, right? And this is called RACI. It's called responsibility. Accountability, consulting, and informed matrix, or RACI. Basically, you put all the people here. This is all the people that are on your project. These are all the people. And this spreadsheet, of course, will be very big because the project is bigger. And for every person, right, you can write, so you can write his role here. Andy is doing this, Don is doing this, Duane is doing this, and so on. And then you say, okay, for project management, who's the one responsible? Who's the one accountable? What's the difference between responsible and accountable? Okay, so I'm going to save you this. Responsible is the one who's doing the work. Accountable is the one, right, that's accountable for the results, right? So for example, if you have a contractor, and this contractor or vendor, and this contractor is renovating your house, right? The person who's accountable for the final result, yes, the person who's accountable for the final result of this renovation is the contractor you hired, right? The vendor or the contractor you hire. But the people he bring, the person who's putting the paint, that's the one responsible for the paint, right? The person who's doing the windows, that's the guy responsible for the windows. So the person who's responsible is the one who's doing the work. The person who's accountable is the one who's accountable for the results. So usually the responsible guy usually report to the accountable guy, okay? And then you might have someone who's informed, you just want to tell them about what's going on, right? Or someone who's consulted, someone you go to them and say, hey, can I get your opinion about this and this? So you put this RACI together, and it helps you because then you publish this, your team must know about it, your core team, right? Your core team must know about it, your extended team must know about it. Man, it's really hard to type with a mouse. Core team might know about it, must know about it, the extended team must know about it, and they might come back and say, no, I'm not responsible for this, I'm not accountable for this, which is okay, because you need that negotiation, you need that discussion until you come to an agreement who's accountable, who's not, right? Now, for every task, you cannot, I repeat, you cannot have more than one accountable person. Every task have only one accountable. This is the one accountable for the results, right? Because if you do, then who's going to take, who's going to be, responsible, who's going to be in front of you accountable for the action? So when you hire the contractor to renovate the house, it's only one guy you hired, right? He cannot come and say, hey, if you want to ask me about my work, ask all these 5 people. It doesn't work that way. It's only one contractor, only one person who is accountable. So this is a very useful tool. Next thing is you want to define a communication plan. Communication plan, internal communication first, and this is just a sample, right? This is a sample where you say, here's the different meetings. These are the different meetings: steering committee meeting, core team meeting, vendor vaccine development meeting, economic relief meeting, medical facilities meeting, infection status meeting, immigration meeting. These are different meetings I just thought about we're gonna do. And then you want to explain the audience for each one of these meetings, who's the audience, who's going to attend. And then you want to say the vehicle of communication. Sometimes it's a meeting, there's minutes of meeting, sometimes there's reports. And then the frequency, this meeting, steering committee, this is the big meeting with the big, executives monthly. Core team meeting must meet every week. Vendor meeting must meet every week, and so on. Maybe immigration meeting, maybe it's not that important, maybe every other week, and so on. And then who's facilitating the meeting, who's running the meeting? You'll see a lot of it is project manager, project manager, project manager. Yes, even though you say, really, the project manager is running the meeting for the vendor vaccination? Yes, because the project manager gets to the meeting to say, hey guys, what's going on with the vaccine? What are the issues with the vaccine? When should we expect that the vaccine will be ready? Ask all these kind of questions, right? And then in his core team, the project manager, he should have a vaccination expert, right? Who can talk to the vendor technical stuff. Okay, they want to talk about the HTO and M25 and all these chemical stuff, right? Then they can talk this technical stuff on the side as well, right? And then the expected results, status, and then what we call DARE, which is decision, action, issues, and risk, which we're going to see that in a little bit. So this is an internal communication plan. Excuse me. And then you will have, this is again how I would design it, you will have a countrywide communication plan, right? Countrywide communication plan. The purpose of this countrywide communication plan is to make sure that the public, people of Indonesia, are all on the same page so that we are fighting the pandemic together, right? We are fighting this virus together, right? So it should, this countrywide communication plan should highlight the process, right? How is this communication is going to be written? How is this communication is going to be approved or published? The nation should have a consistent response. You don't find, part of Indonesia doing something, another part doing something else. All facilities, all ministries should be on the same page. You don't see one ministry coming and saying, guys, tomorrow we're going to do restrictions. And another ministry tomorrow, the day after saying, no, we're not doing restrictions, right? So all of them are on the same page, same policy, right? And this is because we have a communicated countrywide communication plan. All businesses, all commercial facilities should be compliant. So when Jakarta says, guys, we have restriction, and restaurants, hair salons, gyms must be closed, everybody know that, right? Including all the facilities, including the police, because the police will enforce the law, right? And then this will also help to keep the international image of the country to other people outside to be solid. Oh, this country got their act together. They're organized. They're this and that, and that helped with the country economical outlook or rating, and of course that helps with stability and safety. So this is the purpose of the countrywide communication plan. The process itself, this is simple, okay? It could be very complicated, but for the purpose of this seminar, I made it simple. Every entity will be responsible for its own part of the communication. So for example, the hospitalization or the people who are responsible for hospitalization, if they have certain policies, they would write a draft report. And then that draft report will have to go and must be approved by the Ministry of Communication first to make sure that the language is correct and stuff like that, right? And the Minister of Communication will also is represented in the core team. Remember, the core team will have somebody from the Ministry of Communication, and then all final communication will be approved by, again, the project sponsor, which is the Minister of Health, or the President himself if needed. Sometimes Minister of Health say, I cannot approve this, I don't have the authority, then he will raise it up to the President who will approve it. It's very important that such a communication and such a process must be quick, You can have the best process in the world, but if it takes weeks and weeks and months, you're gonna fail. So we're gonna make a clause that everything must have 48 hours to complete, right? And if you have urgent matters, can be even accelerated faster, right? It's my project, so I can say whatever. And then, what is the content of this countrywide communication? First of all, in the very beginning, when the virus showed up, right, this communication plan would have told people about the danger of this virus. This is an infectious thing. This kills people. This moves very quickly. It will show people early symptoms. It will show people who's most vulnerable, the people who are old, the people who have underlying conditions, and so on. Ways to protect ourselves, social distancing, mask, and so on, washing hands. This communication plan will also show the status of immigration. Are we closing the border? Are we allowing people to leave or not, or fly or not? It will show the infection rates. It will show the death rates. It will tell people about the vaccine development and testing. It will tell people about when to expect the vaccine to be administered and people get the vaccine. And it will tell people about restriction laws. So this is part of the countrywide communication plan. It will also prepare people for vaccination, right? So once the vaccine is being developed, you need to administer, right? You need to give it to people, but you don't want to wait until the vaccination is ready and then you do all that stuff, right? You want to do it now. You want to do it now. So you want to tell people what IDs are needed, what system will be used, what process to follow, and so on. If there's any issues, what to do, right? So you need to tell people upfront, communicate upfront. Also, this communication, countrywide communication, will show any restrictions on laws, right? It will tell people if there's any penalties. It will tell people about the guidelines for restrictions and guidelines for business opening and closing. Okay, so this was communication. You also want to define, like we said before, the scope, right? The scope. And the scope, like we said before, it's what's included. What are you trying to build? What are you trying to achieve in this project, right? You have to define the scope early on. And right now, all we did so far was we had a project charter, we put a team together, we have a sponsor, we have a project manager, we put a communication plan together. That's all we did. So now we are, and now we put a scope document or scope planning together. Right. It's best for the project manager to start writing the scope document himself, but he must also touch base with the sponsor to make sure that he's in agreement. It's not the project manager right to say what's in or out the project, but the project sponsor, Minister of Health, has no time, right? So the project manager is a younger person or someone who's dedicated to the project. So this person will get together with their team, the core team, and maybe the extended team if needed, and they will write down the scope. And when they do that, the best way to do this is to draw a big box on the wall, big box on the wall. You give everybody sticky, you know the stickies, right? Okay, I don't have them. I have them here somewhere. Anyway, you know the stickies, right? The sticky notes, right? And you tell people, okay, go and put the sticky where you think. In, meaning it's in scope. So people will put sticky here and sticky here. And in the sticky, they will write what's in it, right? So someone here will write vaccination. Someone here will write hospitalization. Someone here will write immigration, right? And then what's not in the scope, right? What's not in the scope? Are we developing the vaccine ourselves? No, then it's out of scope. But we are procuring the vaccine, right? Procuring the vaccine meaning we are working with companies, pharmaceutical companies, to develop the vaccine, and then we will buy the vaccine. But we are going to be involved while they are developing the vaccine, testing the vaccine. We have to. We don't just say, okay, we're gonna sleep until you guys done, and then just give us the vaccine. And then whatever we don't know if it's in the scope or not, you put it on the border, that's on the fence, and then you can decide later, right? Once the scope is defined, you go back to the sponsor and you say, Mr. Sponsor, here's what we did. Do you agree or not, right? And this is a simple scope statement. This is a simple scope statement. It includes the justification for the project, why we're doing this project, right? Well, COVID-19, virus, infection, death, economic impact, it's not difficult to justify. The scope, what's in scope? Things, in scopes, things like procuring the vaccine, administering the vaccine, giving people the injection, relief packages, economic, communication to public, imposing restrictions, building hospitals, developing border control, immigration, developing IT systems so that the minister systems talk to each other. What's not in this scope We're not developing the vaccine ourselves. We're not adding any military capabilities. We're not building the army. We're not developing tourism. That's not part of this project, right? We're trying to improve the economy. We're trying to improve the banking rates. We're trying to give people relief package, but we're not developing tourism part of this project. Could be a separate project, different. And then you have project deliverables. These are the main deliverables, such as the infection reports, the vaccine development, the vaccination plan, restriction guidelines, communication, immigration policies. And then you have the project success criteria. How do you know, when do you say that the project has been successful, right? When you have developed an effective vaccine, when you have vaccinated 80% of the nation, for example, when you have declared the country virus-free, then the project succeeded. Otherwise, if this project just do things, and nothing happened, then the project was not successful. Timeline. Timeline is the schedule, right? And there's a huge process that goes into this. I'm sorry, I am not going to go into that because that takes us hours and hours just to explain it. But basically, it's a timeline of tasks and deliverables, and how much time is needed, right? And the timeline or the schedule is important because it will govern the pace of the project, how fast we're going, what tasks can we take long time in, and so on. It will show us if we are making progress or if we have delays. It can affect our resources utilization, such as hospitals, such as quarantine facilities. These are all resources. And it will be tied to the budget because how much money the government is spending. The timeline can be in different forms. These are all different formats that people use. Sometimes you can use what's called milestone chart, which only shows points in time. At this point, this happened. At this point, this ended or this started, and so on. And then the Gantt chart, very famous. We're going to see that in a minute. And we have something called network diagram for die-hard project managers. They can use that. So this is the timeline for this project, right? I put together a timeline for this project, and this is my own estimation, right? The whole thing started sometime in December 2019, right? And it will start with initiation, and these are the major deliverables. Project management is needed, communication, both internally and externally, vaccine development, vaccine administration, economic impact and relief packages, medical facilities, infection status, immigration, funeral facilities, law and order, police and army, and IT systems. So this is the summary, is the big picture of the timeline. And then I don't have the software on this laptop. It's on a different laptop, which is very slow. But if you're interested, I can also show you that. And each one of these initiation and project management and so on, we can call it a work stream. So it's a stream. And each one of this, because of its complication, you can have a project manager or team lead in charge of that stream of activities, and that person would report to the project manager, who's really become more of a program manager. So if we take each one of these, this is, for example, the initiation, and you can see now we broke the initiation into tasks like this, and then the project management tasks, and then the communication tasks, all this stuff. You can see here, this is a Gantt chart. You can see here the tasks, and you can see here the duration, the time. You can see start and end. You can see who's doing it, and you can see something called predecessor. You don't have to worry about that, but something cannot start until something else finish or done. And then here you can see the timeline. You can see here 2020, first half of 2020, second half, first half of 2021, second half of 2021, right? And as you can see from the summary, if you go back here, the project started in December 2019 and will end, inshallah, by the end of 2021, right? That time, everything is done. People are vaccinated. Inshallah, the virus is gone. Okay, vaccine development. This is the schedule for vaccine development. I had to simplify things because this can go crazy, can go into a lot of details, but that's not what we're doing here. So vaccine development, you get the you get the DNA from the WHO organization, you design vaccine criteria, design fast tracking development, you develop the vaccine, you test the vaccine, and then you approve, and then you procure, right? And this could be all done by the vendor, right? By a company such as AstraZeneca or Moderna. And we, as the buyer of this, we still need to be involved in what's going on to know what's happening. And then you have the vaccine administration. Once the vaccine is being developed, right? How is it going to be actually, given to people, and the distribution plan. And then you have economic impacts. You have economic impacts, relief packages. You have medical facilities, building more hospitals, quarantine, and so on. You have infection status. It's important to know the infection situation in different areas. Immigration, funeral facilities, law and order, the police and the restrictions, and the IT systems that's needed to integrate all together. Change management, it quickly is any project might have some changes in the middle, right? For example, the minister will come and say, hey, can we also add tourism to the economic impact? And this was not included earlier. What happened when you do that is you introduce a new set of activities and tasks, and this will impact your timeline. This will impact your budget. This will impact your resources, right? So you have to, and this might lead to something we called scope creep. Scope creep meaning the original scope that you had defined. All of a sudden, you have so many other things that someone added, some of the stakeholders added in the middle of the project, and that's not cool, but it happens, right? So you must have some sort of change management process. It's too small, but basically any change you have to evaluate. What does it mean? You're going to add tourism, okay? That means we're going to need 6 more months of work. That means we're going to need $200 million more of money. That means we're going to need 300 more resources, and so on. And depending on the size of the change, it goes to different level. So you can see here, this is change management from level 0 to level 4. Level 0 meaning there's no change, no impact to money, no impact to schedule, so the project team can approve it. Level 1, changes only less than 1 week of additional time. The cost can be managed, and so on. The approving authority could be the project manager. Level 2, program manager, 1 to 2 weeks and more impact. As you go higher, you have 1 month of additional time impacted by the change, and more than $250,000, then you need maybe the steering committee, maybe the sponsor or the president himself, right? So it depends on the size of the change. You can approve it or reject it, right? But if you approve it, then everybody knows that this project now will cost more money and it will take more time. Estimating and budgeting, again, as a project manager, you need to be estimating how long the project will take, how much money it's going to need, how many people it's going to need, right? There are many different ways of defining estimate. My favorite is bottom up. You detail the project into smaller detail, and then you find how much it costs to do any of those.
Hari ini aku ambil dari acara ITES, tapi dari sumbernya dari itu.
If you can mute yourself, please. Right. So estimating, you work basically with your team, and then you come up with a budget. I'm not going to go over all that. And the budget will cover things like cost of people. It might cover things like cost of material or fixed price. Let's say you're paying one number or one fixed price to the vaccine development, right? So that's estimation and budgeting. Document repository. As a project manager, I make sure that all the documents for the project are in one place, right? So it could be on the cloud, could be in Google Doc, it could be in some of the software like SharePoint or Jira, because that makes it easy to access. There's no confusion. So if someone wants the latest timeline, it's there. The latest budget, it's there. The latest issues, it's there, and so on. Right. So this is the document library. document repository. Next, you want to define the risk management, right? And risk management is extremely important. Risk, like we said, it's an event that might or might not happen. And if it happened, right, you want to know what's the likelihood or probability it will happen, and what's the impact if it happens, right? You're saying, well, I don't want to deal with risk. It means we don't want to deal with negative impacts, and that's a problem. We're not going to make it go away, right? So, right. So, for example, yes, yeah, yes. So, for example, let's say you say I go to work every day from this road, right? I always take this Jalan, and then I go this way, this way, this way. It takes me an hour, right? You have done this like this for the past 5 years. Every time you go, this road is fine. Risk will say, to be able to plan for risk, say, what if tomorrow this road is closed for maintenance? How am I going to get to work, right? Now, if you're going to say like this, so what is the risk? The risk is there's a chance that the road to work might not be open tomorrow, right? And then what's the probability this will happen? You will say it's low because for the past 5 years, this really never happened. So the chance, the likelihood, the probability is low. But what if it happened? The impact is high because I'm going to be late for work, right? And so you define a risk score, which is multiplication of the probability times the impact. And then you have a plan. If this happened, what am I going to do? I'm going to check the traffic news daily. I have an additional alternative way to go to work. I'm going to call my boss. I have his number to tell him that, hey, guy, I'm going to be late because the road is closed, right? So you have a plan. So risk management will look something like this, right? You will have who raised the risk, right? What is the risk? What is the probability of the risk? What's the impact? And what's the score, which is this times this, and you take the highest. And then what's your plan, right? What are you going to do? So for example, one of the risks would be in this project, the test results might not be satisfactory. It might not be satisfactorily in time.
Alert from system UI server.
Sorry. Right. So the mitigation for that is that you test early and you choose a large sample, right? And then you have to have a date where you check constantly on the risk. So these are some of the anticipated risks for this specific project COVID. Slow decision-making, bureaucracy, silo mentality, meaning this ministry, this government, this work, this area, this authority think only by themselves. They don't talk to anyone else. IT systems are not integrated on time. Testing is not done enough. Vaccine development might take a long time. Ego gets in the way. Yes, ego is risk. You come to me and say, Amro, your facility is not working, and I'm like, I know you don't know anything, right? So ego can be a problem in projects, and then other types of risks. Once you have all this stuff, you want to have a kickoff meeting, and in the kickoff meeting, you want to bring everybody, all the stakeholders, and you want to explain to them what you have been doing so far, the timeline, the issues, the communication plan, and so on. Procurement is basically getting the medicine ready. So I'm gonna go over that quick. I mean, not go over it actually. Yeah, right. And then managing project work. You've done all the planning. You have your team, you have your sponsor, you've done communication. Now you want to manage actually the project work. And what this means, basically, you want to check on everybody's work, the vaccine, how they're doing, the vendor, the immigration, how are they doing? Yes, if you do it correctly in this project, the project manager and the core team will check on the different entities that are all part of the project. There's no such thing as, well, this is immigration, back off, don't talk to us. Or this is the Ministry of Health, back off. To have this successful, everything must be connected, everything works together, and everything must be reporting eventually to the project manager and the project sponsor, right? And we use logs. So the logs we use is very simple. We use something called action log, basically, what needs to happen. For example, circulate the infection reports for July 2020. Who's doing it? What's the date? What's the update on that? What's the status, open or closed? And then you have decision log. And in the decision log, basically all the major decisions that took place in the project. And why that is important? Because someone will come later and they will say, hey, we never agreed to that, right? But if it is in the decision log, right, they will not say we never agreed. So for example, who do we vaccinate first? And maybe we'll say the decision will be like this: medical personnel, healthcare, politicians, elderly above 65, project personnel, army and police by April 2021. People who have underlying conditions, May 2021. Everyone else by September 2021. That's a decision. It's approved by Minister of Health, and it costs this much money if there is a financial impact. Decision log. Issues log is when you document all the problems that happen in the project and the priority of that issue, who submitted the issue, who is responsible for the issue, and here you must have one name only. You cannot have two names. You cannot have here the person responsible for maintaining social distancing is the police. Who's the police? There's like 10,000 people. You must have just one name from the police group, and so on. And then meeting minutes, meeting minutes, everybody's familiar with it. You must always maintain your minutes for your project, because this becomes a legal document. It becomes a track in time where you documenting everything. Communication. How many times have you seen this, right? What's the matter with you? Don't you realize I have good people skills, right? So apparently this guy doesn't. He's just shouting at people, they scream, then they're scared. 90% of executives rate themselves as effective communicators, but only 30% of their subordinates, the people who work for them, agree. But if you ask any manager, say, oh yeah, I'm good. 90% of people, the managers think they're good. But the people under them, they said only 30% think they are good communicators, right? And this is something very, very important. Communication is extremely important. Communication, and we get into this into trainings like leadership and so on. Communication is not only what you say, right? But it's also, there's also the tone, right? The tone is your, how your voice is loud, or you're really calm, or, like that. And then the verbal, the words, and then the nonverbal, the body language, the body gesture, right? And what does it tell you? If you talk to me and I'm saying, I'm interested, my body said, no, I'm not, right? So you need to be able to read body language to do better communication. These are tips on communication. I'm not going to get into them. And we discuss in other times the 7 C's of communication, such as completeness, conciseness, consideration, and so on. Anyway, and then managing your stakeholders, it's key, because you need to be able to communicate all the time using the communication plan with the people that you're in touch with, the ministers and the governors and the medical personnel, facility representatives, and the immigration and so on. So you must have continuous meeting with them. And verifying the work, basically meaning, sorry, I'm rushing to get done. So we have Q&A. Verifying the work, meaning how are we making progress on any task, right? So you can use reports like this, or you can use something like this, where you have, this is more formal, you have, this is the project, this is just a sample. Here's the project ID, here's the project name, what phase is it? Is it an initiation, planning, execution, so on, completion date, who's the sponsor, who's the manager, if you have an IT piece, who's the business manager, you have the objectives for the project, the background for the project, and then the current status, right? In the vaccination stream, here's what we're doing. In the medical facility buildup, here's the status. In the immigration status, here's what we have. In the infection rate, here's the status. Each one of them will be one of the streams, remember the streams, right? Coming and reporting to you, and you capture everything in a status report, and that status report will go to the stakeholders, will go especially to the sponsors and the steering committee. And basically after that, you close the project, and closing the project meaning you're documenting everything, lessons learned, good and bad, and you're telling people the project is done, successful, and people move on with their project, with their life. Final thoughts, right? Project management, the project manager must be involved. for the project to succeed. The project manager must be involved and must be managing the project like his own baby, like he owns the project. A lot of time you see project managers are hands-off. They're just coordinators, right? They just put a schedule together and then they come to you, hey, so this task, what happened? Okay, but they're not involved, right? So if this was your house and you have a contractor, construction guy coming and fixing your house, would you be not involved? Would you be like, I don't know, do whatever? No, right? You'll be very involved. And a project manager, a world-class project manager, is always involved, no matter what the project is. The sponsor must be 100% committed. That big guy, Minister of Health, must be committed. He cannot be like, I'm too busy, go away. Then nothing will happen. All the ministers, all the stakeholders must be able to make decisions or influence decisions, right? However, all the decisions have to be coordinated with the project manager, with the project sponsor, who might also consult the project manager and the project team. So all the decisions has to be still going through the project sponsor. People must be held accountable, like we said before, not two names, one name on everything. Bureaucracy must be out. I know this is difficult, but if you want such a very sensitive project to succeed, you must try to reduce bureaucracy as much as possible. 1 to 3 days for decisions. The core team members, these are the people who work with you day in and day out, must be very committed. Risk management must be done very early, and the whole effort must be managed as a project. Now, someone would say, yeah, but did I need a project management to do this? Project and team and project manager and sponsor, man, you give me headache. Yes, you do, because when you have a project, it's focused. You have a team focus on it. You have a core team. You have extended team when you need. You have a sponsor, always dedicated. You have a dedicated team, a project manager. You have a dedicated sponsor, right? It shows progress, right? It focuses on the decision and the actions and the issues and the risks, right? Projects are best suited to make a change, right? If you just run this COVID project or any important project as just an operation, just give it to this ministry and we don't care. It is not going to work. Okay. Challenges to project management in Indonesia, and some of this stuff is also outside of Indonesia. Unfortunately, many people focus on certifications. Certifications is important, but it does not give you experience. I'd rather you gain experience as a project manager and then you get certification, not the other way around. Many think as coordinators, not as project managers, so they're just going with lists and charts. Sometimes we are too nice and too polite. And there's nothing wrong with that. But don't be too nice to the point where people are not doing their work and you're like, well, I can't, I have to. No, you as a project manager, you don't have to be mean, but you have to be firm. Be nice and eat with them and pray with them and play with them, but make sure work is done. No accountability is a big issue. People try to put 2-3 names and everything, too many organizations. Silo thinking, meaning this department think this way, this ministry think this way, this entity think this way, and another department think completely different. So they're not synchronized. Too much bureaucracy, you know that one. Sometimes we are too slow to make a move. People do not stay in their jobs too long. People move too fast. So there's no consistency in delivery. Companies think project management is a waste of time. Absolutely mistaken. PMOs, Project Management Office, which is an organization or department that manage project managers and projects, do a bad job. So project management basically it enables people to work together to find solutions. That's what project management is all about. And actually, I'm done. I'm sorry that, and I have a little bit here about career later, but I'm done. So Geeta and guys, sorry for taking the time too long, but if you have questions.
It's okay, sir. Thank you for the very interesting lecture. So the next session is Q&A session. May you can ask the question by raise your virtual hand. You can ask in English or in Bahasa, and we will help you to translate if you ask in Bahasa. But before that, maybe we can answer the question in the chat box. First question come to Felis Subhan, or maybe Felis, you can ask there.
Okay. Sorry.
Good
Thank you,
question.
Gita. Yeah. So I have a question from Ferris Sopan. So he said, how about long-term project? For example, project operation and maintenance will contract 10 years. Is it considered operation or project? Okay. So some projects, for example, pharmaceutical development, actually is considered usually long project, right? Forget COVID.
Lost connection, I think.
Yeah, maybe we can wait him until he reconnect again. Okay, we will still waiting for him to come back to our Zoom meeting. While waiting for him, you can make a question, both in Bahasa or in English. Okay, we have Mr. Amro now. Okay, you can unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. My laptop died. Really sorry, guys.
Okay,
So maybe
no worries.
I lost the question. So let me answer the one question first, and then you can ask the rest of the questions to me. So the
Okay.
question was from Ferris.
I will retype the question.
Sure. Okay.
Ferris from Ferris. I will retype again in the chat box.
Yeah. No,
Well,
I know that question, so I'm
this
gonna
is
answer.
the question from.
Yeah. So Ferris asked.
Okay.
He said, "What if the project is too long?" That's a great question, because some projects, like construction projects, right? You're building a dam, or you're building LRT that takes years, right? Or you are developing medicine that takes years. Usually medicine takes a long time. This COVID development was exceptional. We did it really quick, but usually developing vaccine takes years and years and years, right? So what to do? As long as you define the scope of the project, right? What's included in the project, as long as you're developing these parts of the scope, you are in the project, you are doing project. Now, some parts might finish. So for example, let's say you're developing an LRT, and this section is done, right? And it's operational. Then it moved to operation, but the project is still continuing with the other section, the next section, the following section, maybe this extension, so on. So a project can be transforming into operation little by little, depending on what's being delivered as part of the project. But as long as you are developing this scope, even if it's 10 years project, you are still in the project. And then those pieces that finish and are ready to be done with the project and ready to be moved to operation, you hand it over to operation and you explain to them what's going on, and you moved on to operation. So Ferris, I hope I answered your question.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Amro.
Sure. Okay, Gita, hit me with questions.
Okay. The next question I will retype again. This is from Proto Dekdo, or maybe Broto. You can ask directly, or yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Amro.
Yes.
This is Dekdo. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. I'm still working in the pharmaceutical company now, and I have some of the project was postponed due to the COVID. Based on your experience, because actually in the previous you already shared to us about your experience more than 30 years, how to handle this situation. Let's say, for example, COVID or unpredictable situation. Because actually, I'm not sure from the other project, because the COVID is more effect to our company, postpone all of the project due to the COVID. Yeah.
Sorry, how do you pronounce your name? Gedo?
Dekdo.
Digdo, sorry.
Yes.
Digdo, so you have a project and you're running the project, and then which is basically installing new equipment and things like that.
Yeah.
And then the project was postponed because of the COVID-19.
Yes, correct.
Right. So okay. So there are certain things you can do, and there are certain things you cannot do, right? So basically, think about it like this: as a company, you have somebody making decisions, right? The executives, the CEO, maybe the board, or maybe the senior managers under them, right? Usually, those guys will make decisions every year on what goes on what goes on in the year. For example, in 2021, right? Many companies, not all, right? Good companies, they say, okay, for 2021, we will work on this project and this project and this project, this new equipment, this new service, this new market, whatever, right? And they say these are the different projects, and for every project, they bring a project manager and then a team and so on, right? So this is from the company perspective. From your perspective, you're managing the project. You don't handle that level, but then they come to you and say, sorry, Pa, we gotta have to stop this because of COVID. There's not much you can do. There's not much you can do. Your company might move you to another project, or if you can also use the time to catch up. You can use the time, for example, to say, what have we done so far so good, and what have we done not so good, so we can learn from it, right? How are we doing with schedule? Are we late? If we are late, why? Are we ahead of schedule? Great. How is the budget? I don't know if you manage budget. Some project managers manage, some project managers don't. How are we doing with the budget? Have we exceeded the budget as of today? And if yes, why? Right? And then use the time, especially if you know this project will continue again, it's just a matter of pause, then use this time to also socialize with the stakeholders, the main project sponsor. So you have a backup, you have a support. So once the project starts, you go ahead, right? So you can use the time in a positive way. As far as the company making decision to stop the project, there's not much you can do, But if you have a client, for example, and the client is the one you're delivering this equipment for, then you need to communicate with the client. But of course, you need to communicate through the sponsor. The sponsor and maybe you can get with the sponsor and say, Mr. Sponsor, as of today, we have done this. and then please, so the sponsor now can go to the client and say, Mr. Client, here's what we done, and now because of COVID, so at least the client is not in the dark, right? They know what you're doing. Yeah. Was that does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Or did you want?
Yeah, I still curious, right? Because actually, our main product is the medicine, and during the pandemic, our demand is very increased. On the other side, we need to rearrange the schedule to maintain how to prioritize our project to meet the equipment, let's say, and we can running or start to continue for the produce the medicine. I think that's the obstacle, Mr. Amro.
Yeah. So sometimes you will have delay in the project, right? Sometimes because of many reasons. Maybe the vendor, maybe your sponsor, maybe your own company, maybe outside thing like COVID, right? So if this did not kill the project meaning the company come and say, we're not doing this project anymore, even though we spend money, but we're not. Sometimes they do that. But if it didn't kill the project and you simply have delays and you want to catch up, you want to make sure that let's say you have 4 main things you're doing, right? And now you have delay. You want to make sure you focus on the critical path. You must be able to identify what's the critical path. The critical path is the longest task or the longest set of activities till the end of the project. Okay, you must focus on that because that's the one that controls the timeline. That's the one that controls the end. If you finish the critical path early, you can finish anything else early. So you must be able to prioritize and look at your schedule and focus on your resources on the critical tasks. And if you want more information on that, you can contact me. We can talk.
Okay, thank you for your insight. Thank you, Mr. Amro.
Sure, man. Thanks a lot for the question.
Okay.
Okay, for the next question from Traino Joko, you can make a question now.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Pak Amro.
Assalamualaikum.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation for the project management. So I'm working in the project in the geothermal in Revia Sendosi for EPC contractor. So yeah, and just share too, we same like Pak Dagro, so we postpone and then we propose our sponsor with the BCP, business continuity plan. So we propose the sponsor to continuity, but with the protocol in some. But I have a question about the project cost management to Pak Amro. So how to control this cost for the indirect cost for this project? So to because our employee around 2,000 people, so this indirect cost is maybe very big. So how to control it? So and estimate how to estimate it, and
So,
the schedule. The second is a schedule. So is as long your experience if during the COVID. So how long to can complete it? Estimate complete in the project delay or extent of time. And the third is so I think for the insurance involved for the stakeholder, this is a insurance company can be involved to cover the indirect cost this disaster for the contract or something like that. So we need your explanation or sharing from your experience. I think this is from our question.
yeah, let me try to understand. So you are a contractor or you're the client?
I'm the contractor.
You're the contractor, right? And then there's postponement, and then what item is costing more money again? Sorry.
We postpone and then we propose for the business continue plan. The project should be must go on, should be move on, but we propose some estimate cost. But the estimate cost is probably like a lump sum part, but but we don't know the exactly for the risk how many impact cost actually, but we only estimate. But we worry about our estimate is maybe bigger than our proposal. So, what your opinion to estimate cover this indirect cost for the COVID?
I am, to be honest with you, I don't understand your question. I think I do, but I'm not sure. So I'm gonna. So you have an unforeseen items.
Yeah, unforeseen like COVID condition. This is unforeseen, right? So we have some following the protocol like PCR and then quarantine.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's costing money.
Yeah, this is costing money. So
Oh wow.
yeah, this is can be covering with insurance or we just for sponsor or something like that. So how to estimate it, the
Right.
cost, and
Yeah.
this is first, and then the schedule too. This is the
Right. But Trino, so basically it depends. It depends how you set up the contract from the beginning, right? You have to look at the contract, right? So the contract can have management fees, right?
Mhm.
Can have unforeseen clause, number for something that you haven't, like you said, COVID, nobody thought about that, just showed up out of nowhere. Which you say, if this happened, let's say the unforeseen clause is, let's say, 2% of the contract cost or 5%. Now, so this is one thing. Usually it's good to do in every contract, right? Unforeseen clause or management fees, which is really, or reserved fees, right? So this is additional. So your estimate to deliver the project is this much, right? And also you have management fees. You have reservoir or extra money for unforeseen thing. And if this happen, you can use that. Now, the other thing people should do, I don't know if you did that, is that when you estimated from the beginning the cost, you added a little bit money for those kind of situations, for risk that will materialize. Then if this happened, then you're not violating the contract. Now, if you don't have that, I don't know if your insurance will cover it or not. You need to talk to them. I have no idea. You have to look at the insurance contract, right? So you have a contract with the insurance. I don't know actually in Indonesia, to be honest with you, but in the U.S., we have a clause which is, unfortunately, they call it act of God, which I don't like, but that's what they say in New York or in the U.S. So these are items, that never anybody expected, a flood or disaster or earthquake or something. Some insurance covers that, but you have to have it. You have to check their contract. So I cannot answer that without looking at your insurance contract. So that's regarding the cost. Or you can also talk to your client if there's no insurance. And if there is no, you didn't put extra money in the budget for these kind of situations, try to talk to the to the client. Say, look, it's not something I have to do. This is something new to us. Maybe we can split the difference. Maybe we can try to make negotiation. Maybe the client will be understanding, especially if they like your performance, if they like your work. You never know. They might be able to chip in, right? So
Yeah.
these are ways to think about. Unfortunately, I cannot give you a definitive answer without looking at your contracts. As far as the schedule, you have to reflect the new schedule. So, for example, if you were supposed to be delivering in December last year, and because of COVID, everything is slow. You cannot get resources quickly because people have to do testing first. Now you have 6 more months of additional time, right? You must explain that to your client. And this is why it's very important in every project, Trino, to have something called change management. And change management deal with these situations. You have situation like this, it's a change because nobody anticipated, nobody thought from the beginning that there will be such a situation where everything will be delayed, right? So you go to that change management and say, look, we because of this, we need 6 more months of work or 3 months of more of work or whatsoever. And you put that as a change. It's called change request, and you submit it to your client, and your client say, okay, I understand. At least they accept that the work is not going to be done in December. Now it has to be done by June, for example, right? And they should be understanding. So again, it has to go back to contract. And this is why Patreno, when I mentor people or coach people, I say what you plan in the very beginning is extremely important. So, and this is why it's important, Patreno, if you're managing construction projects, before you start, I recommend to you, ask your boss and the procurement, I want to see the contract. Let me see the contract. You got to read the contract, because if you don't read the contract, first of all, you might be doing something against the contract. You don't even know because you didn't see the contract. Number two, you are prepared. So when you read the contract and there is no additional money for situations like this, you tell your boss, this is a problem, so you know, so they don't blame you on everything, right? And better yet, if it's possible to be involved even earlier when they're still writing the contract, you come with different mentality. You say, guys, we need extra money for these kind of situations. What about if something get delayed? You have to add all these things to the contract. If you leave it to the lawyers only, lawyers don't think about these things. So
yeah, right. You're right. We got the additional cost, but and then extra of time, but the lump sum, because we don't know the impact for the EOT is this is correct or not for us. But we already did with your suggestion. We get some additional cost and extra time, but for the COVID, we don't know the when the COVID is over and
that's a good question.
extent.
That's an excellent question. So when you estimate, Patreno, right? Most people, when they estimate, they give you one number, and that's a problem. They say, for example, hey, you want to build this new phone? You're going to have this new phone by June 2021. Okay, that's assuming everything went right. But what if things go wrong? And in America, we said, if there's a chance things will go wrong, they will go wrong, right? So when you estimate something like this, right, timing or estimation cost or money, you must put a range. You must say, if everything goes well, this will finish in 6 months. If things go bad, this will finish in 9 months. So you're actually giving them 2 schedules, right? Now, some people might not like that. So if they don't like that, that's fine. Then you give them the worst scenario schedule, not the best scenario schedule. Because the best scenario schedule assume everything is great, everything is working, everything is hunky-dory, right? Then you give them a padded, and this is not being not honest. No, you're still honest, but things go wrong. So you have to protect yourself. Now, if your client is open-minded to understand the concept of best case, worst case, and we're going to deliver, that's perfect. But most clients will not understand that unless you teach them, unless you educate them, at which case give them the worst case scenario.
Okay, Amro, thank you.
And Patreno, try to contact me later. Here's my email, here's my phone number. Maybe I can help you more, just who knows.
Okay, nice, Pak Amro, thank you very much. We can talk detail for contract and strategy for the COVID during the project. Thank you, Pak Amro. Okay.
Sure. Thank you, man.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think this is the last question because the time is up. I'm sorry, I'm forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, time flies so fast that our event today has come to an end. But before that, we invite you to all to make a virtual group photo. So please kindly share your best smile by turning on the video. You can turn on your video now, so we can make the virtual photo, and you can share the virtual reaction too. So Miza and Saskia, you can take a picture now.
Can you take another picture? I think I was sleeping
Okay,
in
we
that
will
picture.
still.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks, Trainer.
Okay, we will still waiting for the rest to turn on the video. And share your virtual reaction. To give the appreciation to our guest lecture. So I will count now. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Once again. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amro.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you, everybody. Yeah, thank you, Pak
Thank you,
Amro.
Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys,
Thank you, Mr. Amro.
so much. Okay, have a good day, guys. So I'm out.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good day too, sir.
Okay, Pak. Nice to meet you.
Salam.
Good
Assalamualaikum
day
warahmatullahi
to
wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you for all. I will close this meeting. Thank you very much for attending this session today.
Apa kabar, Feby? Sibuk kali.
Baik, Pak Helmi. Gimana kabar, Pak?
Baik.